where do you go after reaching a peak as high as the Alicization arc in Sword Art Online? A lot of authors would maybe take that chance to start coming to a rested conclusion in their story and take that big win for what it was. But I'm really happy to say that Sword Art Online got pushed to the next level after reaching such a high. Now, the Alicization arc introduced many factors that can lead forward into the story, as you know, if you're an anime watcher such as Star King and the underworld as a whole. But if you haven't read the light novels or anything, what comes next is a short arc called Moon Cradle that takes place in the underworld. And then the next big arc is Unital Ring. And here in front of me, I've got the both manga adaptations so far. There's Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 2 just came out about a week ago, and I read it as soon as I got it because I was super excited to see this awesome arc visually represented. Because I will say, Unital Ring is shaping up to be potentially my favorite arc in the whole series. Granted, I love the series front to back so much, but that also goes to show I have a lot of nostalgia for certain parts of that story, and yet this arc really might dethrone it all. It's so fun, and to my point about reaching such a high peak like Alicization, what Reki Kawahara does with the story is he takes all these pieces, all this built-up potential, and he just keeps pushing it forward. At this point in the story, we have so much interactions with characters and antagonists and everything that instead of just letting it end there, let's take Sinon, let's take Lifa, let's take Kirito and Asuna's relationship, let's take Lisbeth, Yui. I mean, Yui's huge at this point because consider the state of AI in the story at this point. Realistically, Yui is, well, first of all, a top-down AI, but potentially using the word primitive might not be right, but an earlier stage of AI than what we're used to now. And so how will she fit into the story? And how can we take all of them together and make a new arc where, you know, every arc in SAO, the cast is in some way fragmented. Really every arc, besides maybe Caliber, which at that point we're still missing some characters. Now we have Alice on the crew. And so taking all these characters together to make the most epic arc that you can, I think was a fantastic move. There was no need to fragment the gang at this point. Everyone is here. And that's the first big plus of Unital Ring. Not to mention that we're taking such big moments of suspense and cliffhangers, things to work with that need answers going forward. And instead of answering them quickly, instead of answering them briefly, we're taking such a exciting route to what's going to be ultimately an epic conclusion and probably answers that I just cannot see coming at this point. I really can't. So I'm going to mostly go over my thoughts about Unital Ring Volume 2, but I do want to give a breakdown of Unital Ring 1. So I will mildly spoil the plot of both of these volumes here, and I will try to refrain from going too far into the future. So if you are interested, I mean, I would highly recommend reading these. Volume 1 and 2 together covers just a little bit more than Volume 1 of the Unital Ring in the light novels. So anyways, let's get started. The art is fantastic in these books. I know the SAO manga can be touchy on which adaptations are great or not. I've read Kiss and Fly. I thought that one was great, but Unital Ring I'm really into. We kick off with a very cool, very well-colored page where you get to see almost the entire whole cast just on this first one. And the words you're seeing here are actually going to come up later in Volume 2. So we're not going to cover it quite yet, but it is a bit of a prophecy of the arc to come. Love to see this art together. I love to see, I mean, we get a little sneak peek at outfits to come and so on. But we get a little recap of the underworld, and I'm not going to go page by page, but I do kind of want to give an idea of what to expect with these volumes and why I think they're so special. So, the opening page, if you aren't totally familiar with where Sword Art is right now, yeah, you are looking at spaceships right now. You are looking at outer space. These are characters that will seem somewhat familiar if you've watched or read so far. We've got incredible suspense built up so far. And so this kind of picks up right at the end of the anime where you're seeing the abyssal horror space beast. And at the end of the anime, we saw Kirito, Asuna, and Alice spawn into space, looking cool as ever, like unbelievably cool. I mean, that's what Kirito does, right? Uh, at the bookend of all of his awkwardness and overthinking comes the moment where he is very cool, and that's typically where the camera is going to show him, right? So great to see this moment. This was all animated on the last episode of Alicization, so you may be familiar. Asuna looking fantastic as ever. So just a testament to how good the art is. Now, if we're going to get into the Unital Ring arc, something that I think the arc does well, we're skipping forward into the gang playing ALO. We've got Kirito, Asuna, and Alice here together. And you might be familiar with these warning symbols from the episode 1 of Sword Art Online. This is what everyone saw before they got trapped in the game. Well, I guess they were already trapped, but before Kaiba made his announcement about what the death game is. So already a flash of PTSD about what's about to happen. Now, what I think this arc does great is it takes... we needed the next thing to latch onto that makes us hold on to the story, right? Obviously, I already like the characters. I'm excited to see where the story goes. But what the arc does is use Kirito's log cabin, Kirito and Asuna's log cabin, and really the main base for the whole gang. And it puts it at risk. And if you've been caught up in the story this whole time, you know that the log cabin is a really big deal to them. You know, it represents their relationship from so long and built up so long. I mean, Yuki has been in that house. Everyone has. And so New Aincrad in ALO starts to fall apart, as you can see here. And upon falling apart, they're at risk of losing their log cabin when it hits the ground. So they do everything they can, and ultimately they're able to salvage it, but the log cabin is going to be in bad shape. So immediately, they don't even know what game they're in right now. Something has changed. They've fallen, they don't have their wings anymore, and they're essentially trying to figure out what's gone on. And I love that during the whole mystery, what we can attach ourselves to is the fact that we need to make sure that the log cabin is okay. Everyone's reset to level 1. And there we are. The log cabin is really in shambles. And this spot means so much. So all we know, first of all, is how do we fix it? And that presents the main plot line, at least for our characters to start off with for this arc, while they figure out everything, which I think is a great way to go about storytelling as a whole. Is we can learn the mechanics of a game through our characters' motivations, rather than just being like, okay, give me the tutorial of the game. No, we want to rebuild our log cabin, so let's figure out how to do so in the game. And what they're going to ultimately do is find out what materials they need, what skills they need, so on, to be able to restore it to full health. And in that case, it should no longer look like it's in shambles. So we're now in what they figured out to be is a survival game. And this is going to be thematically really prevalent, I believe, especially juxtaposition with the fact that the underworld is still out there. We're not in it right now, but we are currently in a game where we're bashing rocks together, trying to make things out of wood. You know, this is very primitive. And then on the other end, in the underworld, there's spaceships. I mean, they've advanced so much. So it gives a really good back and forth later on, because you know the underworld's going to exist. I mean, we already saw it. So that makes Unital Ring very fun, is that they're really starting from scratch, bashing rocks together to figure out how to make crude knives, which will ultimately be their first weapons. And the rest of the book will follow the story to come of what's going on with the other characters in this new Unital Ring game that they're trying to figure out where they are in the first place, and trying to restore the log cabin. I mean, what's great about this arc too is like we get to change perspectives all the time. Here we're with Silica. Silica is not a character I cared about for a long time watching Sword Art. I mean, the first couple times I watched through the series, I just felt like she was there. the more I go back and now seeing how she plays a role in even Ordinal Scale, War of Underworld, and now Unital Ring, I'm coming around to liking these characters so much more as you get to get more experience of them having their own spotlight, which is great in this arc. And ultimately, the game is going to go on. They're going to keep collecting those materials to fix their cabin. And upon doing so, they are going to reach a triggered event against a very powerful monster. And the next book is going to pick up right where it left off, which is great. I personally love that. I don't need jumping around too much. We're going to go straight to it. So here's volume 2. Just came around last week and I read it right away. And I just want to show how much I love it, really. Seeing all this visually. The Thorn Spike Cave Bear, I believe is called, is an awesome fight. This is, well, then we get the inside color spread with Asuna. Blue Asuna is my favorite. Undyne Asuna, yeah, glad to see it. Very glad to see it. Love this inside color spread. But the fight against the Thorn Spike Bear is really cool. I think this is exactly the kind of demonstration of how Kirito fights in general, not to mention when he is at a disadvantage. They're all level 1, and they triggered an event with a not like a field boss, but a monster in the area that they are definitely not ready for. It is much higher than them. And so they're going to have to use what they have to survive. And if you've played Breath of the Wild, this will feel very familiar, where early game in Breath of the Wild, you can be faced with things that you're not quite ready for. But the game provides so much in the environment that you can use to your advantage that you don't necessarily need to be, I know there's not levels in Zelda, but you don't need to be as strong, have the best weapons, have the best equipment. You can use what you have and often come out on top, especially in like Tears of the Kingdom or Echoes of Wisdom, where you can like drown things with your abilities and such. So anyways, it provides the perfect canvas for Kirito's creativity to come out, and that's exactly what it does. There's, in the light novels, admittedly, there's a little bit more monologue that you get, inner thought of him kind of in his overthinking state to get there. But as a light novel reader myself, and now getting to experience this visually, I know exactly what's going on in his head, and I think even if you came into this manga the first time, you should be able to realize kind of the dots that Kirito is connecting. One thing I want to also emphasize that I liked about this visual representation is that while reading the light novels, I did not really have a great clear picture in my head of what the spindle HP bar was supposed to look like. It definitely looked different than in my head than this ended up coming out, but it's super cool to see, and there's a great visualization of how Death looks later on in the manga. So very cool to see. Ultimately, I will show what happens in this fight. What's great is that Kirito realizes he doesn't have the power to win or the weapon durability. So what he does is climb onto the roof of his log cabin, initiate a trade sequence between Lifa, Asuna, Alice, so on. And at this point in the story, they don't have the strength to be able to hold these crazy items, so they're being very weighed down by everything they do, which is why they can't use the items that they had from ALO. And what Kirito's going to do is at the end of this trade sequence on the roof of the log cabin is he has 150 pine logs that he's going to materialize on the roof and drop onto the bear. I thought this was super clever the first time I read it, and I still do. And what I love about a moment like this is that it's a clever, creative way to get our characters from level 1 to 13 in a flash. Which in a story where like we're going to be very ambitious going on a huge adventure, I think that's a great move to do is let's skip these early levels. Let's get him straight up there with the skills that he's gained, through all these arcs playing video games. It's perfect. And then in this game, it's a survival game, so they're going to be harvesting materials from the bear and such. And that's actually going to be used for monster taming here. I didn't even really know too much of a picture of how to visualize who's going to be Aga, this like platypus dinosaur guy that they're going to eventually tame with all the bear meat that they got. So now not only do we have our entire cast coming together into this arc, granted they haven't met up yet, but you know that they will. But you're also making new allies through like monster taming, which I love in video games, and I'm sure many of us do as well. So they end up taming this monster that's going to help them defend their home. I love to see it. And going forward, they're going to go here through the crafting system, which is very fun. This is actually, I'm glad I turned to this page precisely because you can see Asuna and everybody have new clothes on. They were able to make new clothes out of the plants they harvested. And now Kirito's trying to figure out how to make better weapons, being able to make nails and sheet metal and stuff like that for his house. And so it's describing the method of materializing new things that you build. And so this is going to be a stone furnace that they do. And basically he like pinches, he makes a hand gesture and can move the phantom of what he's going to build around. And this will come up later. But it's super cool to see that. I mean, the art is fantastic for visualizing how this is going to look. So love to see it. They're out there gathering ores and everything they need, and the manga does a great job of the pacing too. You're not stuck on them just sitting around looking for rocks. It'll go over that part quickly because we don't need to see every little bit. And then we come around to what's going to be the first PvP encounter. More people come by. Granted, Kirito and Asuna, they don't know the game that they're playing really yet. This is all new. So a PvP encounter with what is assumed to be more people that also are unfamiliar with where they are. Well, of course, that's going to come around to Kirito getting stabbed front and center. Unfortunately, Kirito has a big reputation in ALO, and what I need to go back and cover real quickly is what was said before this happened. Because there's a moment that happened to everybody in the game where they found out that there's a goal to all of this. And leads to people like this guy trying to weed out the competition. So let's real quickly stop there and go back to the front page. What happens around the time of Kirito and everybody trying to rebuild the log cabin is this announcement that comes at this time in September. The seeds bud, sprout and stems. Geez, maybe if I could read it right. The seeds bud, sprout stems and leaves, and join ends to form a circular gate. Visitors to this land drained of hope, preserve your precious lives, withstand myriad trials, survive untold dangers, and to the first to reach the land revealed by the heavenly light, all shall be given. So that's the promise that was made in the Unital Ring game. This announcement happens all of a sudden around 9 p.m. And it comes as a surprise to everybody. And this is the end of the grace period where if you retained any stats or weapons and stuff from the game that you were imported from, because Unital Ring turns out to be multiple games apparently coming together into one, you no longer have those stats. You can no longer hold the strong weapons that you used to have. And as such, it leads into that PvP encounter. But as you know, Kirito and the gang are going to find a way through. Luckily, Silica's plotline merges in with Kirito's, and they bring in reinforcements as well as new armor for Kirito when Yui shows up. Super endearing. I absolutely love it. So Kirito gets decked out in new armor, has a more basic sword that he can handle at his new level 13. And you know from there, he's going to handle business. So there's one more section of Unital Ring Volume 2 of the manga that I was most excited about. And this is actually the beginning of the second volume of the light novel. So let's skip on ahead to my favorite character in Sword Art Online, Sinon. Oh my god. Having the second light novel volume start with this was so good. I was so excited the whole time to see what her experience was getting pulled into Unital Ring. And seeing it in manga form just did not disappoint. Now, I will say, part of a big section of this was actually cut from the manga and is only referenced through flashbacks. So there's a whole plot line going on here that I won't get too deep into. But ultimately, Sinon was pulled into the game and pinned to be a player killer because she ended up nearby people who got killed. And she took their items thinking that they would log back in and didn't want like them to lose their items because their bodies were left there and anybody can loot. So she decided, okay, I'll hold on to their items. When they log back in, I'll give their stuff back and we can like team up and try to do this. But she got pinned to be a player killer and a thief because it turns out that when you die in Unital Ring, you can never come back. So that mystery at the end of the adventure that was announced, you better not die in the game because you are never going to come back and be able to find it. So anyways, Sinon has to get out of there and runs off away from the people who pinned her as a player killer. She ultimately comes into a cave where she finds a few items, and she still has those items from the players that died, so she has a little bit of gear that she can use. And she equips it, but ultimately, enough time has passed where she's realized that there is a TP meter and an SP meter, TP being thirst points and SP being stomach points, along with your HP and MP, I believe. Yeah, definitely MP. And so she has been running the opposite way of where water is because she's trying to get away from people who want to kill her. And unfortunately, that means that she's going to have to go find some source of water in the wild. She can't use her best gun anymore because her stats don't support it. So she's just going to have to keep running and hoping that she gets somewhere before her TP meter drops to 0 and she dies. As she goes forward, she comes across like this super sick dinosaur looking boss. And you already know, Sinon versus giant dinosaur boss, and she's level 1. This is going to be epic. I through the roof just seeing it. This panel itself too, so good. Sinon's so cool. The enemy is so cool. And what ultimately happens is that Sinon is able to find this crowd of NPCs, these like bird guys, that have also been trying to kill this dinosaur. And as things go, she ends up at the top of the cliff where they are. Oh my god, this panel of referencing Jujio Kirito is fantastic. She gets up to the top of the cliff, and she's able to get assistance from the NPCs where they all use their strength together to hold up her extremely heavy Hecate that they don't have enough stats individually to hold up. When she holds up her Hecate too, she's able to fire one shot, and this goes to show how strong her weapon really is, because in the world of Unital Ring, when she fires that shot, I'm not even going to try to say its name, the dinosaur who's at almost full HP, bang, and one shot with the Hecate. Granted, this is not a method that she could reliably use at all for anything that's going to not stay moderately still. But she is able to use her Hecate and win the battle and get herself just barely to a source of water, drink, and survive to see another day in Unital Ring. And that's going to be just about the end of the Unital Ring Volume 2 manga. But we do actually use the end of Volume 1 of the light novels as the ending point for this one, and that is the introduction of Argo. Argo being a character that not many people might remember if you're kind of more casual on the Sword Art side, but she's the information broker in Sword Art Online, the original first season. She is there on the Christmas episode, and she's back now. She's also prevalent in the progressive storyline because that's more expanded on Aincrad. But we haven't seen her in a long time, and here she is now again for Unital Ring, where in this mysterious game, her information is going to be very vital for being able to continue forward. And that is the main point, what you're going to get from Sword Art Online. The manga volumes, there is a couple cuts here and there, like I said, for the beginning of Sinon's story that you don't get to see. And then actually a little bit of Kirito's fight versus those player killers. Some stuff is shortened that really would have heightened Kirito's creativity in battle. But the light novels are also there if you want to see that version of it. This is still a fantastic way to dive into the Unital Ring arc, and I can only encourage you to do so. If you haven't caught up to Unital or Sword Art Online, the anime as a whole, what are you doing? Go check it out, and then jump right into Sword Art Online Unital Ring. There is a Moon Cradle arc that comes before this, but while I don't recommend skipping it, you can move forward to Unital Ring and come back to it later because it kind of happens, you could say, on the side. won't spoil for anybody who's looking to jump in. But there you go. I hope you liked this little review slash gush of Unital Ring, and I can't wait for the third volume. Thanks, and have a good one.